Alright, guys. Very good morning, everyone. My name is Prateek. I'm from IvyProSchool, and sorry we're starting a little late, but we just had a lot of calls coming in who wanted to join, and they were getting late. So we have an interesting speaker today, Mr. Walid. He's a data scientist from HSBC with a lot of years of experience. So he's going to be the lead speaker. He's going to walk you through a lot of things. Specifically, the perspective of today's webinar would be more towards what analytics recruiters, data science recruiters look for. So that would be our perspective. Plus, at the same time, we would also tell you about a very unique method of pursuing your data science career. This webinar. Hey guys, I know a lot of people are joining in online. I'm going to request each and everyone to please mute your microphone. We will give you ample opportunity to ask questions, guys. But during the session, when the speaker is speaking something, I would request everyone to please keep your microphone mute. You can always type in your question in the chat window here. We will see and we will answer to almost each and every questions. Okay. And if you have any technical issues, normally by re-login, any audio or technical issue is taken care of. So please do so. All right. Okay. Now, this particular webinar is also partnered. We are partnered with Propel, which is a student finance company. So I'm going to talk about that also a little shortly. So just quickly, so this is the agenda, very quick agenda, and we will we'll skip the agenda for now, and I'm going to just, I think most of you, since you are here, you probably enrolled into this webinar, so you know a little bit about Ivy already. So we are into data science for the last nine and a half years now. We've trained more than 12,000 people. I can talk a lot about data, about us, but I will details just because I want to get on with the agenda. We're already late. So, Walid, why don't you take up from here?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Walid. I've been working with HSBC for the past 3 years in credit risk analytics, mostly dealing with economic capital modeling and stress testing. Before we begin with the agenda for the day, so let's just get to know each other a little better. And so I'm guessing all of you are in your final years of college or university at the moment, right? And so how concerned or worried about how you're going to perform at your interviews in the coming few months or say the next year? So you're concerned, right? And what if I told you that, what are the general backgrounds that you're coming from? Economics? A lot of economics? Anything else? Statistics? Commerce? Yeah. Okay. So all of you are familiar with the concept of correlation? Very simple concept, right? Taught in stat first year or something like that. And what if I told you your recruiter asked you the question and you answered it wrong? Do you think you'll get hired? No? Well, I got hired despite answering it wrong. And I'll tell you why and in what circumstances you can get over something like that, right? In your interview. So if you're worried about your interviews, then I think this would just give you a little bit of motivation to think that, yeah, like you can make it through despite some mistake that you can make in there. So the way we are going to structure the talk today is that first of all, we are going to talk about some basic skill sets, and I won't spend too much time here because I think all of you know about it, but I'll like touch upon them nonetheless. And then we are going to look at some interview hacks, specifically regarding how you're going to make yourself like that one person that stands out to the recruiter in terms of how you have the best CV, in terms of how you stand out in a group discussion, in terms of how you perform in the personal interview. Okay, so we're going to walk through that entire process one by one. And so to begin with, we are looking at like the basic skill sets that interviewers need. And I think as a student, so I remember 3 years back when I was back in university, one of the basic concerns I had was that, okay, my marks might not be that good. So will an interviewer want to hire me? So that was the basic concern I had. Now, academics or your academic record is kind of important when an interviewer is looking at hiring you. But it is not the only important thing, because if academics was all that an interviewer is looking for, then it would not come to your college or university and conduct a day-long process. Instead, it will just go to your university administration, and to take like the top 5 students based on their marks or CGPA and hire them, right? But the fact that they are actually going through a day-long process and like going through a number of rounds, talking to you, trying to understand what are your key skill sets, is basically showing that academics is not the only thing that is important. So yeah, it's good to have that you have great marks, but if you don't, there are a lot of other things that you can have, which you can use to make up for the lack of like really great marks. I, for one, did not have really great marks. I was an average student, but there were other things that I sold to my recruiter and said that, these are the things I'm good at, and these are the reasons why you should be hiring me. So we'll come to that as we go along in the talk. Secondly, it's about technical skills, right? So when you're talking about data analytics, so there are basic tools that you use in data analytics that you need to be somewhat familiar with. So in general, like the traditional tools that have been used in the industry are say SAS, SQL, R, and if you look at stuff that are coming up recently, so R is something that is getting taken up by even bigger firms more and more now. So they're moving away from proprietary softwares like say SAS, which costs a lot of money, and a lot of firms might not have the finances to get a license for that. You can talk about something like Python. A lot of firms at my work, so we are currently say using MATLAB to do some modeling work ourselves. So these are a lot of different techniques and tools that you might, it's good for you to have. But the point of the matter is that as a student, when you are a student going for an interview, your interviewer is more interested in whether your logical reasoning is really good, if you can actually frame a business problem really well, right? Because the tools are extremely important, but the tools are something that you will be taught or you can be taught if your logical reasoning is really good. The tools are something that you can be taught if your logical thinking is really good. So that when you are asked to write a program, irrespective of whether you know it or not, you can always say Google it and try to find out how to frame it if you have the algorithm correct in your head. The language is something that you might not know, and the language is something that you will need to know. But on as a recruiter looking at a student, that will not be the first and foremost thing that a company will be looking at in general. So the understanding of the fundamentals is more important. Of course, it is very important that when you go into an interview and you have written on your CV that you know SAS, you know R, you know a bunch of other softwares, you are at least somewhat familiar with the syntaxes and the command structures of those languages. So that if your interviewer asks you that I have an Excel file and I want to import it, and that's not a very difficult job, right? Just importing data. You should not be blindsided, and you should at least know the basic command that is required to import that file in whatever language you have mentioned in your CV. So that's really important to make sure that everything that you have written in your CV is covered for in terms of your knowledge base. Again, we'll come back to the CV part in some time. Third point here, soft skills. So I'll ask you here, what do you understand by soft skills? Anybody?
Communication skills,
Communication skills. Anything else?
technical skills.
Technical skills, when you're looking at a data analytics interview, that will be one of your hard skills, right? So that's the basic skill that that an interview will be looking. Presentation, yeah. Anything else? Team player, yeah. Leadership. So these are basically some of your characteristics of an individual which go over and above the basic hard skills or the technical skills that are important. And this is not very industry specific, right? So it's not that you need teams, player characteristics or leadership skills or communications just in analytics. It's something that you will need and will be valued no matter where you work, in what industry you're working in. And in analytics also, it's extremely important because you might be a very good data scientist. You might be somebody who can build an amazing model, a really efficient model that drives a lot of business savings for your company. However, you're not very good at explaining the benefits of that model to your business stakeholder. And in analytics, that is eventually all that is the crux of the problem, right? To sell what you are actually building. So you might be a great modeler, but your communication skills, your leadership within the team is extremely important. And just to and like the point about team player, being a team player, that's again something that will be very important. And I won't like focus on those points here because we will bring these points up when we go through the GD and the PI, right? So can we just move on to the next slide? Anybody, so you can look at the slide here and any concerns about the terms on the screen. Have you heard of machine learning?
Yes.
Do you understand machine learning? No? Do you think it's a black box? Do you think you will not get hired if you don't know machine learning? Most probably won't get hired if you don't know machine learning. Well, that's not entirely correct at the moment because, yeah, so first of all, machine learning is not a black box. It's something that can be understood if you go through like a basic training, and you can do it on the web, you can do it at a place like Ivy. But at the moment, the analytics industry is moving towards it. But as a student, it's not something that will be something that you need to know. It's good to have if you know machine learning. But what is more important is that if you have your logical reasoning and all that correct, if you know how to run R or run SAS on the more traditional forms of statistical models, then making that next step to machine learning is just about learning the formulas, right? The syntaxes. That's the commands basically. So the message from our end would be like machine learning is good to have, but don't get too bogged down by it. In the sense that if you're not entirely comfortable with the idea, don't put it in your CV and say that I know machine learning just because you want to impress the recruiter, right? So that's basically the idea here.
So there are a couple of points here. One is, what Walid said about is that only put things up in your CV that you're very, very comfortable defending at. So if we go back to this previous slide, it says be great at what your forte is. So whatever your forte is, you highlight those that you can defend no matter what comes. So, if you want to do machine learning, and the second point is that machine learning, when people hear about it, even when, a lot of people hear about it, even people, we hear about it, machine learning, artificial intelligence, we kind of cram up. We kind of think that, okay, it's something that's really must be difficult because, not a lot of people keep doing it. But the idea here is that you have to be open to the idea that, it's not that difficult. If your logical reasoning and everything is in order, where you actually do understand the logical flows and the business processes and how you go about an algorithm and different other statistical tools, this is something that's going to be easy. And all you have to do is just pick up a few courses. You pick up few courses. There are multiple, open online courses from Udacity, Coursera. You can do courses at Ivy, much more, focused courses. But it's going to be easy once you have the basic algorithms correct.
Okay, so just moving on to the next part. So what we're mostly going to focus on today is how to stand out in your recruitment process, right? So the objective is to get the call to the next stage. That's always the objective. So if you're applying through email, if you're sending out your CV needs to stand out. Okay, if you've been given a call for a group discussion, you need to be really good at the group discussion to get to the next stage, to the PI. If you have reached the PI, you need to crack the job and get it. So that's going to be the focus, and we are going to walk you through each and every step of the process here. So we'll look at CVs and we'll look at GDs in some detail here. So can we just move to the next link? So here I have this CV on the presentation, and I think this is hyperlinked. So can you just click on it? I think it will just go to the PDF. If you can just lower the zoom a little bit. Sure. Yeah, I think this will work. Okay. So there's the CV on the page. The names and everything else have been masked. And I want to tell you, if you are a recruiter and you have this position open and you are looking at 50 CVs have been sent in to you by different people, or you have a pool of CVs and looking at that, and this CV comes up on your screen, what would be your first reaction to it? Not structured, okay? Anything else?
Not the content. We're talking about when you look at it instantly because 5 seconds you can't read the content. Untidy.
Can we just scroll down for
One page.
too much on?
One page.
Too much on one page, okay.
Lack of formatting. Lack of presentable formatting.
Okay.
And each and
Exactly.
every-
So when I'm looking at a CV, the first thing I want to see is that everything that I want from a CV should be right in front of me. Nobody is interested in what you have on page 2 of your CV. Okay. If you have so many things to write as a student, like that means you're not really sure about who you are and what you want to sell yourself on. What are the characteristics about yourself that you want to sell? So as the point earlier was that, focus on what your forte is. Your CV needs to reflect that. Okay. And so yeah, there are a lot of problems with this CV, and it's something like that we could actually sit down and correct. And it's important to understand that as a student, I think you might have a lot of concerns of that, I don't have enough to write on my CV. A lot of people have this concern. I don't have enough to write on my CV. And if I just give a CV with the truth, so to speak, then nobody's going to hire me because nothing is going to be there. So this is something people are concerned about. But it's always useful to be more honest than to like exaggerate on your CV and make it run onto a second page or a third page. Now, when you're looking at your CV, there are two things. First of all, the overall formatting and presentation needs to be pitch perfect, right? Uh, Most recruiters will look at like a soft copy of your CV right now, which won't be like they'll have a hard copy in front of them. Make sure there are no spelling mistakes. Make sure there are no grammatical mistakes on that. That's the first thing. If I open the CV, I should not see a Microsoft Word showing me underlines saying that this is wrong in terms of a spelling or something. That creates a terrible first impression. Secondly, if you have your education or your work experience, make sure it's in a very nice formatted table format. It doesn't need to have like say a border or something like that, but it needs to be structured and it needs to be very precise and short. Okay. Thirdly, if we look at this, there are personal details. So a lot of people generally look at personal details and add their address. I don't know why I need to know your address as a recruiter. Okay, if that's the first thing I'm looking at, because I'm not going to send snail mail to your address to tell you that please come and attend our interview next week. So start your CV generally with the name on top and just have your email ID and phone numbers, because that's the only two ways you will be contacted at this point of time, right? And your address will be important after you get the job, and HR will be like, okay, where do you stay? So real estate in terms of the page is very important. You whether you want to write down an objective or not is something very like it's your call, but don't make it something very long and generic. If there's something very specific that you want to come across with, then yeah, sure, have an objective. And after that, the points, the next set of things, like whether you want to add your work experience or an education, first, like the order in which you present them, that will depend on what your forte is, what you want to tell the recruiter. So if you think that you have some work experience in the past and you've done some good work, and that is what you want to drive your recruitment process on the basis of, have your work experience right on top. Okay. Again, when you're mentioning a work experience, make sure that the work experience is relevant and recent. It's not like you worked on a project 10 years back in a different industry and you're mentioning that with a paragraph. That doesn't really help because it's not relevant to the recruiter at this point in time. And if you can just scroll up to the previous page, page 1. Yeah. So this person here has mentioned like four different projects that he or she has worked on, and as you can see, they are all projects at Ivy, right? And that has been mentioned 4 times, and that is a wastage of real estate on your CV. You're wasting space on your CV. Secondly, he has mentioned, so I've actually gone through the CV, so I won't like walk you through the entire thing. So there are 4 points, one in which is used a logistic regression, one where there's like a linear regression, one an ARIMA model has been used, and factor analysis on the other. But actually, if you look at the first 3 projects, they're all predictive modeling projects, right? So what you can do is that you can club the 3 together and put it in there. Now, if you're, no, so first thing is, So the objective was get to the next round, right? So at this point, the recruiters looked at the CV and already put it in the pile where he's not going to call this guy. But if this CV had been concise and very to the point, and he had mentioned the things that he has done, not like you don't have to mention them, but in a concise manner, then these 4 projects could be something that he would have talked about at the interview stage. So you have to understand that you need to sell yourself. Don't oversell yourself. And there are things that you put on your CV which are very important to draw attention to yourself, and there are things that you will talk about in the interview stage. So you need to make that distinction. Should we go on to the second CV?
So personally, I feel that whatever is there in that CV, if it comes down to 3 pages, it could easily come to 1 page. As in, imagine, the way it happens is you have, let's say, a pile of CVs, or you just have it online. You just go through it, you just swipe it. You hardly get more than 3 seconds for a CV. So it just has to attract that much that you just put it in a separate pile. It just doesn't have to go into another pile. So imagine if it's 2 pages. I don't think I have the patience to turn over and see what's there. As in, the first page should attract me. So whatever is your forte, it should be right there on the top. So let's say your work experience is the best thing that you have done. So start with that. Make sure, because our eyes are attuned to it in such a way that we start from the top up, and we expect that the best thing should be there up on the top. If your marks are the best thing that you have, start with your educational qualifications. If your projects are the one, just for whatever it feels like for this guy, so those things should again be on the top, which is okay for him that he has put his projects on the top. But again, he has made it very, very redundant in the sense that, let's say, the first sentence, as in, the responsibilities are not really responsibilities. As in, if you say build a logistic regression model, that's not a responsibility, that's what you did. So you just have to, again, using the SAS at Ivy Knowledge Services Private Limited, and using these logistic regression, linear regression, ARIMA model, I would have clubbed that in a particular part. I would have said tools used, logistic regression, blah, 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 and at Ivy Professional School. And then just a single line for each of these, which is, probably predicted the probability of students completing honors degree. That's it. That's it. To a certain degree of accuracy or something like that. That just makes it really, really concise. That just makes it concise for somebody to, quickly see and get an understanding. You don't have to, as Walid mentioned, you don't have to show the world to him. You just have to entice him to get to an interview such that he asks you more questions about it. If you complete your everything here, what do you have to speak to in an interview as well? Even when he asks, somebody asks you to come in. Ishani, just go down a bit. Just scroll down a bit. Yeah, go down. Yeah. Just stay there. So again, I don't have to tell you that, the highlights here are totally wrongly, made. 4 lines, it could have been couple of lines and it could have been shortened. I am not going to go through so many words at all. Just has to be single sentences. Ishani, go down a bit. So community development work, active member of Umeed, a foundation of hope. That doesn't really tell me anything at all. As in, at least tell me that, member of, as a member of Umeed, you're kind of branding Umeed here, a foundation of hope. As in, you should be branding yourself. That as a member of Umeed, I did this. I got 100 registrations, or I, did this. That gives a thing that, okay, this guy did something on that. Running and cooking, that, unless you're a marathon runner, there's nothing that's going to interest me there. If you're a marathon runner, of course, I would love to speak to you, as in maybe I'm a marathon runner as well. Walid, you did photojournalism?
A friend of mine.
Yeah, a friend of ours had photojournalism on his, as one of his hobbies. That's something really interesting. His entire, interview went on that. So, as a similar thing with objective as well. Just a very generic objective just seems like you're kind of eating up space, unless you have something like some objective. We heard a student say that that my objective is to create something where I use data science to analyze all the kind of data and signals that we get from different satellites, or things like that. It sounds different, as in it's something that could probably attract somebody to get you to an interview and to speak to somebody that what are you talking about, let's discuss this. But a very generic objective that like the way he has put in, it doesn't really mean anything. It just cuts up space. So be careful about the real estate that you have on the CV. and utilize it to the maximum. Try to keep it within a page, because 2 pages, you don't have so much to put up in 2 pages anyway. um,
So on the hobbies part, right? So it said running and cooking, and that doesn't interest me at all as an interviewer. But so as he said, so if we have if it had mentioned that I'm a marathon runner and I am interested in cooking, like exotic cuisines or something like that, that in some at some level might be something that could be like an icebreaker in your interview. That's something that the interviewer might be interested in. Like there's a possibility that that might be true. So I have a friend who worked in a movie as a child artist like many years back, and if you put that there, that's something that can actually interest the interviewer and say, okay, like fine, an icebreaker for the interview. But if you have something very generic like this, it's better not to waste that space and not have it on the CV at all, right? So we are going to look at another CV here. Now, compared to the first, what is better here? I want you to focus on the positives compared to the first. It's more structured. Okay. Okay. Professional snapshot, you're saying? It could be? Okay. 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 Can we just scroll down a little bit? So this person has mentioned tools and then going on. Again, second page, right? Work experience, educational qualifications, and then again, additional information. Why do I care about your blood group or your passport number or your marital status at the point of time where I'm just trying to figure whether I put you in this pile or that pile? Not important. I want to know you as like your boss, maybe like a couple of months later. That's where we will come to this portion. But at the moment, it's not required. Educational qualifications, again, well formatted, but this could have been even better, like better use of space on the page could have been done if columns B and C were just made a little smaller so that the names of the institutes could come in one line rather than 2 or 3 lines. And that's where you save space, right? You make better use of your space. Can we just scroll up? Yeah.
1 second. Just a point here that I just see right now. Just a little bit. So when I look at this, if I look at this CV, the first impression, as in if I come here, the impression that I'm going to get is this guy is careless. He is not, if. So if the percentage code, if at couple of points he mentions a single decimal, at the first he doesn't, it should be 66.0. He's not, he's not a guy I can trust with the minute details of everything. As in, these are the things that matter. How much time do you think it takes to put in a CV? Yeah. So let's say in a CV, how much hours do you think it should be put in to build a great CV? A great CV is the one pager. It's going to be a reflection of you. It's the first thing that's going to get you somewhere, maybe to a GD, maybe to an interview. Without that, you could be really brilliant, but you're not going anywhere to a next level. So how much, take a guesstimate. How many hours do you think you have put in your CV? Days?
I'm putting days.
Okay.
Just
But-
figuring out the minute details and all.
But you can't be working from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m.
No,
working on the
not
CV, right?
that kind of, whatever, like 2 hours per day or 1
Yeah.
hour per day, like 5 minutes one day.
Yeah.
Like that.
Should be
And
putting in-
Fridays I put it in.
Should be putting in at least 40, 50 hours. So imagine your CV as a couple of hours every day. You're doing it for 25, 30 days, showing it to 15 different people. Cutting out all the things that are not necessary, cutting out more, making it look really, really impressive. It just looks, as in you look at it from a point and you think that, oh wow, I have overdone myself. That's when you think that, okay, I can still, I can put it in an interview.
Yeah, so one thing that's really difficult when you're writing down your CV, right? And the reason why you need to spend 40, 50 hours on your CV is that suppose you as an individual, you've done something really impressive in school and you're really proud about it. And you have had it on your CV since school. So you've used it for your internship applications and now you want to use it for your job application as well. However, and it's very difficult to not have that on your CV. Like, why? Like, this is something really impressive I did. I need to tell my recruiter that I've done it, right? But after a point, do you think it really matters what you had done 10 or 12 years back? maybe it's not that important to your recruiter. Maybe you had been president of some club 10 years back in school, but if you've not shown any leadership, if you've not taken up any leadership roles in college or university, that a specific example holds very little weightage there. So the reason why you need to spend so much time on your CV is to actually question yourself and ask yourself that what are the things that at this moment to this particular recruiter are the which are my most important characteristics that I need to portray. And I think the process will go on. So if you like save one draft of your initial CV and you finally come up with the CV that you like finally send across, you will see the differences should be like huge, and you will actually have a lot of points which you will like at the beginning of the process you will be thinking, okay, this needs to be on my CV no matter what, I will definitely have it. And if you question yourself over and over again, you'll find out there are a lot of things that you can let go of. And of course, if it's really important to you, you can bring it up in the PI. So here again, work experience, the formatting is better than the first CV. It's in a tabular form. But if you look at the KRAs, so it says working as a senior business analyst and then for a emerging and dynamic bank. Two parts of that sentence are not required because working as a senior business analyst, you've already mentioned that here, right? Emerging and dynamic bank, you already mentioned your organization's name. So you're wasting space. You're not giving me anything new. Also, you're giving me a big sentence which I might not be interested in reading. Okay. And another problem, if you look at this CV and the one before, was that overuse of bold typeface. It's good to use bold to highlight something that is very important in your CV. But if every sentence has two words in bold, to me, I'm just looking at you and thinking, okay, this guy is confused because he thinks everything is important. Bold should be used very sparingly, and if possible, not at all. So you have bold for say work experience and like the header row on your table, and don't have anything else in bold otherwise. It also makes it more aesthetically pleasing to look at rather than having something in bold, which is not really good to look at if you have it all over the page, right? So yeah, better use of real estate again is the point here. And can we just scroll up a little bit on onto the first page? Tools used, that portion. So the tools used, you had like 6 or 7 tools listed one below the other. That could be put into 3 columns. Much better use of space, and you're portraying the same information. It's not like I'm asking you to not say that you know something. So that is something. And again, if you look at this overall professional snapshot, so when you're saying overall, it means like, it is brief and it needs to be like a summary of your achievements or whatever. But this is not a summary, but again will be important because recognized as the youngest achiever of the month for the month of September 2012, and this CV is in 2016, right? So is it important to me if you were the youngest achiever 4 years back? I don't even know if that is a prestigious award or is just one of those awards they give to the new joiners. So again, things that can be screened out in your CV. So in the interest of time, we'll just move on to the next stage. So fine, you have made a brilliant CV. The interviewers looked at it and thought, okay, let's call this person up. So you are called up and you're sitting in a room with a bunch of other people, and you've been given a topic for a group discussion. And say we have decided that the topic is the pros and cons of demonetization, right? And we're going to have like a mock GD. So we are really nice people. We are not going to make you speak. We are going to do it ourselves.
We can call any one of them from the man going to last.
Yeah.
Are trying to hide.
That's the problem with sitting on the last row.
On white shirts and seeing the pattern in there.
Right. Yeah. So we'll just take 2 minutes. It's a short GD. Okay. So I think what like the thing with demonetization is that it has caused a lot of problems to people in society in general, because people have had to go to banks.
What I believe is, in used to happen long back is people, a lot of black money used to exist. So people,
No, but like you have to understand the costs and benefits of that, right? So I don't think enough work has gone into making sure that the implementation would be correct of the process.
I just interrupt you guys and say that the whole idea was good, fine, but the implementation, it was
No, what do
extremely
you
bad.
mean? Like, no, like idea was good, was that's okay, but like implementation is eventually what is really important, right? And
Yeah,
so I don't
I
understand with
disagree on that.
your I don't agree with your idea what you're saying out here. So
Okay.
so yeah, just a minute. Like so yeah, that's the issue. Like so the implementation could have been better. I think.
what I am saying is the
No,
idea
let
is
this go on. Let this go on. I want to see what do you mean?
what is it?
What are you defending? The
So
topic?
okay, time's up. What was wrong with that GD? That was a terrible GD.
Does that happen all the time?
Most of the time.
It does, right? Because everybody wants to speak. Everybody wants to be the guy who speaks and who stands out.
There are also people who don't speak lately.
Yeah, I was doing that.
So
There was no point that you guys were
correct,
saying.
correct.
It was
So when you go into a GD, you can take your seat. Thank you. Uh, I think the reason why people come up with bad GDs is because they don't understand what the GD is, why the GD is important to the recruiter. Like, why do they need to have a GD in the first place? Is it to check your communication skills? Is it to check something else, right? So generally people think it's my communication skills that they are looking at, and I need to make a great impression by talking a lot. And the more I talk, the more data points I'm giving to the recruiter so that he hires me. Now, I was part of the recruitment team at Presidency University last year when they were looking at the freshers. And so I was sitting in on the GD, and I was also listening to the feedback that the people who were actually hiring, my bosses, had for the different participants. And talking a lot does not help. Okay. First of all, you need to speak to the point. You need to have concise, clear points which you need to articulate in a short space of time. Secondly, it's very important to make sure that the recruiter understands that you have leadership skills in terms of making the group as a whole work and not just yourself. Okay, so if Victor is not being able to speak, it is my responsibility to make sure that I stop everybody else and say, you might have something to say, and give him a moment. That gives you great brownie points there. So make sure that you identify people in your group who's not being able to speak, because you will have people who are a little shyer in general, and you need to give that person that opportunity. And this is not something that you do just to make yourself look better, because that person might have something important to say which might add to the overall discussion in the group as a whole, right? Interruption is terrible. Interruption is like a mortal sin in a group discussion. Absolutely do not do that. So but then there's a problem here, right? So you have a 3-minute GD and somebody is continuously talking. What do you do? And you cannot, you've been told by me in this interview like 3 months earlier that do not interrupt. So how do you make that choice? Because you want to speak a little bit as well. So exactly. Make sure that you do not interrupt him loudly in the middle of a sentence, but whenever that person has taking a small breather, make sure you utilize it. So this is something I think if you go back to your campuses or with your friends, this is something that you can practice, because finding that right moment is like finding a needle in a haystack.
Another tip that I use in my whenever I used to face my GDs was that you try to see whether the person, whatever point he is making, has he been able to make it almost as an, and then he is droning on. Then what do is you try to anticipate the end of a sentence. So let's say the sentence is going to come in the next 3-4 sentence end is going to come in the next 3-4 words. That's when he's going to take a pause. That's when you start. So even 3-4 words before the end, people tend to talk slower because I want to go for a pause. That's when you start. Because if you wait just exactly for the moment of pause, there'll be more people who would want to come in. I'll give you an example of. I'll give you an example of a GD which went really haywire for me. In the sense, it was probably a seventh, eighth day in placement, and everybody was really, everybody wanted to make a point, everybody wanted to make an impression, and so there was a fish market that was going on. Nobody was reaching a consensus, and there were 10 of us. So what I did, I don't know whether it was, just some crazy idea that came into my head, or what, I can probably say in retrospect, but at that point of time, I just did it out of instinct. What I did was I stopped the GD. I could see that the people who are from the corporates who are looking at us, they're not interested at all. So what I did was I stopped the GD. I stood up. I actually interrupted everybody. I told them that, guys, it's not going anywhere. We are not going to reach a consensus. We have wasted 3 minutes of our time. There's just a couple of minutes. Let's do one thing. Let's start with just couple of points from everybody, and let's do it in a circle, and let's start from there. That's it. And I knew at that moment that no matter whatever anybody else says, I will be the guy who is going to go into the next round. Because I just proved it there that, I can control it. And nobody would have, nobody at that point of time, has that motive to keep on speaking again, as in after I made that point. So you understand, as in, I hope you're getting to the point that I'm telling you about. It's not about, what do you say? It's about, communication a little bit, your clarity of thought when you are coming into your body language. Are you interrupting people? Are you taking people in? Are you gatekeeping? Are you ensuring that, the discussion is coming to a fruitful conclusion? So those are the things that people are looking for the guy who is going to stand out from there.
And generally, at the end of the GD, you might be given, in some cases, a minute or 30 seconds to summarize the GD as a whole. And another mistake that people do here is that they just repeat whatever they have actually said and do not include the points that everybody else has come in with, right? And that just shows that you were not a good listener, and you were not able to take in the points which you didn't agree with, which somebody else came in with, right? So you need to summarize it in a manner that is reflective of the overall group discussion and not just of your personal points. So I think we are just left with one more segment here, which is about the personal interviews. But before we move on to that, we would like open the floor for questions. So anything till now that you have any queries about? Yeah.
Like you said, make brownie points by letting the shy person speak.
Yeah.
Okay, what if you are yourself a shy person?
If I am myself a shy person, so then that's something that I need to make sure that I get that courage to open up.
Get the, GD kind of
Correct. But since so the point of the entire exercise is to sell yourself as somebody that the recruiter wants to hire. And if you are very shy, so you might be thinking I'm speaking up here and I'm like a public speaker or something like that. But there was a time back in school where I had stage fright and I could not go up on a stage and speak to people. Definitely not to a room full of people. But I think when you are in a position where you want this job really bad, right? Uh, the scary part is uttering that first word. The moment you have said that first word, after that everything will flow through. After that, that stage fright will go away. Everything will go away. So yeah, I think you just need to be ready and just say that I'm going to start that sentence when I go into that GD. I need to make that initial impression at least. Now it could be that your communication skills are not your real forte, right? In your GD, it's important that you do not absolutely remain quiet. But if communication skills are not your forte, you need to identify what your forte otherwise is, and make sure that you are really good at that. So as recruiters, it's not that a recruiter. I think I said that right at the beginning. There are different skill sets that a recruiter looks at. So it will a recruiter will look at somebody with great communication skills because that is required in a team. Um, they will look at somebody with really good statistical knowledge, say. And if you are that person, so the recruiter will always weight those things accordingly. And so yeah, I hope I've answered you guys.
Follow with the question that if someone on GD
Yeah.
that you asked,
Yeah.
that if someone has already summarized the GD topics, can the person do it again at the end of it? Would it take away the marks or something?
So the question, I'll just repeat the question.
Yes.
So the question is that if somebody has already summarized the GD, would it take away points from me if
Yes.
I just
Reiterate
did
it
it
again.
again, did it again? So yeah, if you have a fixed amount of time and for the GD as a whole, and somebody has already done it, and you don't have anything more to add, then don't waste time for the GD as a whole, right? So just come up with something new. But generally, in a lot of GDs, what the recruiters do is that they let you give you this 30 seconds to summarize it. And there you can actually repeat points that the other person has done. Because obviously, all of you are summarizing the same GD. There will be some points which will be overlapping. The important thing there would be to make sure that if even if 90% is something somebody else has spoken, come up with that 10% which is a little bit different, so that because when the summarizing is happening, the people listening to the GD are sleeping, right? They are like already heard this 7 times, and the eighth time they're like, oh, okay, something new that I just heard stands out. So that's something that might be there.
Yeah, what is the
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question from that room. Can communication skills compensate for not having so good academics?
Okay, the question is communication. Can communication skills compensate for not having great ACADS? I think I am myself an example of that. But yeah, that's not a given. You can't just go into an interview and say, I don't know any stat, I don't know anything about data sciences, but I can talk a lot. What you need to come up with is a mix. You need to sell yourself with an idea that see, my academic is not great because of this reason. Because say I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities in college or university, or because of some other personal reason that you might have. But I'm somebody who's a problem solver. I'm somebody who's a leader. I've done a lot of say if you have been involved in extracurriculars or which where you have used your communication skills, just portray those, give examples of those things, and say that these are general skill sets which will be useful in any setting. And if you hire me, I can use these skill sets to make sure that add this value to your company. So yeah, academics can be offset by communication skills, but the point is you need to present the package in a form that appeals to the recruiter. Yeah, you have a question.
Sir, if the group discussion is going on and two people begin just simultaneously after the breather, so what are we supposed to do at that point of time?
So if two people, yeah, so that's also something that happens because everybody is waiting for that breather to come in, right? And I think the best solution would be that when you start out speaking, be loud, and it doesn't harm you if you give way to somebody else as a courtesy. That reflects well on you because the person who's looking at the GD knows that you started speaking, so it's not like you kept quiet. But make sure that you are the next person to speak. Definitely.
So, just as an example, it's a very case-to-case basis.
Yeah.
So, I would, uh, if there is, there's a female who is speaking, out of courtesy, I'll let her go on. Just if there is somebody who hasn't spoken before, I have made a couple of points, I would let him go on. But if there is somebody who has already spoken before, I would still continue a very strong voice. I will wait for him to subside. If he doesn't, I will still let it go. But I would want to speak there. But even I would maintain a constant voice, strong voice for a little longer period of time, probably 5-6 seconds, and wait for him to get the cue to actually soften his voice and wait for his turn. But if he doesn't, I will still let him go on as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you contain someone who gets really excited in a GT? Like a couple of years back, I had an experience. I was in a mock GD organized by my college. So this person, I was contradicting this person one after another, all his points, and he sort of looked like he wanted to beat me up or something. He lunged forward, literally.
So
How does
I
that
think
advice
Victor
work?
has given an example some time back where the GD was not going somewhere, right? So this is also similar in that case because if somebody gets very excited, that person is no longer willing to hear anybody else. And there the point to be made is that you need to actually stand up for the GD as a whole and say that this is not going anywhere, and instead let's focus on what we actually need to do.
And another point is that when you say that you are contradicting him, if you contradict him, he's going to take it personal anyway. Yes, so you're not supposed to contradict him. You're supposed to show him in a very polite way that maybe there's another way of looking at things.
Yeah.
So does bringing first in a GD any main point?
Yeah, definitely. Because that shows that you're not waiting for somebody else to start speaking. You're taking up the mantle yourself.
It's a double-edged sword, as you know. If you start and you don't have anything.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like that is in general. Anywhere in the GD, if you're speaking, you should have like concrete points to come forward with. So if in that 2 minute preparation period or whatever time you're given for a prep, if you can come up with a set of concrete ideas that you can portray, definitely try to go ahead and start the GD. But make sure again, so the same rule applies. What happens if two people start at the same time? So just start with a firm voice and see if the other person tails off. If not, give right of way.
Like the demonetization topic is concerned,
Yeah.
so according to me, it had both positive as well as negative impacts. So in a GD, do we need to say about any one track like either
No, no, no. So the question is that in a GD, should the person be do you need to come to a consensus or do you need to take a side? So with respect to the demonetization GD that we just conducted, do we say only about the pros or only about the cons or both? So a GD is not a debate. It's about a discussion that you're having within a group, and the objective is to come to a consensus. So a consensus will always be in the middle. It cannot be just that demonetization is great or that demonetization is very bad. It has to be a consensus, and you need to build up your team towards that consensus. It's very important to think of your group as a team. Yeah.
can a single person say about both the points?
Yeah, definitely a single person can say about both the points. You had a question? One more, the last question? Yeah.
Yeah, so is there any polite way of signaling the people in the room that you have a question and not just barging in with an interruption? So just maybe I raise my hand and I get your attention onto it. So you ask me the question after. Is that going to earn me some points?
I didn't really get your question. So, who are you referring to the other participants in the GD?
No, suppose there's a lot of talking going on.
Yeah.
You have something at hand. You want to be accommodating as well. So does raising a hand to signal the speaker or the moderator that you want to speak up next help, like without interruption?
You might get noticed by the people who are judging the GD as a whole, but whether it will help you get the next chance to speak, see, that is very case specific. It will depend on the people in your GD. And it's very important when you go into the GD that you make a very quick assessment within like 30 seconds of the GD starting, that what sort of a GD is this? Like, is it one where people get all personal and start screaming? Or is it somewhere where everybody is willing to come to a consensus? Or is it something, is it a kind of GD where everybody just wants to take a side and not come to a consensus? So it'll depend on your specific GD. It's very case specific, but it's important to have an idea in your head about each and every type of GD that you might be in, because you don't really know what sort of people you will be in a GD, and you need to be prepared for all sorts of these possible cases, and with your responses to those. Yeah, okay. So we'll just move on to the next phase. Okay, so interviews. Now, what do you think is the first question you're asked in an interview? Tell me something about yourself. What do you answer to that? Becomes very awkward. Okay.
I sort of give a brief description of my whatever is written in my CV in a very concise manner.
Okay. Okay, her point is, if it's already on the CV, why do you need to mention it again?
To see something that is like something that is going to make them interested in the CV.
Okay, something not on the CV. So let me just, in the interest of time, tell you the sort of correct answer. There's no one correct answer to this, but in general, what happens is that most people waste this question. This question is extremely important to your interview, because here the interviewer is not asking you a technical question where you need to answer it. This is an open-ended question which you can answer in whatever way you want to answer, right? And if you go out there and give a summary of your CV, that in some way is a little bit of a wastage, because he has already had a look at your CV just before you entered the room. That's generally what they do, right? They have a brief glance at your CV just before you enter the room. Instead of giving a summary of your entire CV, what if you just summarized what your key focus area is, like one thing that you're really good at, and you mentioned that in this segment. So what we are trying to drive at here is that the interview is not something that needs to happen on the interviewer's point of agenda, on the interviewer's agenda. It can be that the entire interview happens on your agenda, that you set the agenda on what the interviewer is going to ask you. Okay, and if says so to the person who was asking about communication skills earlier, right? So if your forte is communication skills, you mention that upfront and very confidently when you are asked, tell me something about yourself. If you're somebody who's done a lot of say statistical modeling in your university or some courses that you have taken, mention that. If you have done a dissertation in which you've used some model and you are very confident about it, and you know like the A to Z of it, you know that any questions on something like that I will be able to answer, mention that in your introduction. Take a couple of minutes. There's no requirement for you to end your introduction in 30 seconds. The interviewer is not in a hurry. At least you are not in a hurry, right? You are not in a hurry. He might be in a hurry. You are not in a hurry. So you come up with the points that you need to talk about, and if you drive the interview to the points which are your strengths, then you have a much better chance of actually cracking it. Rather than if you just go up there, if I go into an interview, I'm like, I'm Walid Adnan, I have done a master's, and so yeah, done. And then he asks me a question, okay, so you've done like econometrics, so can you tell me about ARIMA models? And I'm like, okay, I just blanked out, I don't know what ARIMA model is. And my interview goes entirely bad right from the beginning, right? Instead, if I come up and say that, I have done a project on this thing, and my project used, say, logistic regression, and the end objective of the project was that I found out this happened, and I give the result. I need to sell the end result of it also, not just the statistical modeling part of it, right? And then the next question most often will be, okay, tell me something about the model you used there, and you already brought the interview to your agenda rather than the interviewer's agenda. You had a question. Another very important point is that in the interview, your body language is something that's very important. So don't come across as overconfident. Like, your body language should be relaxed, and the thing that you need to actually portray is that, so knowing what you say or show, right? So if there's something on your CV that you have actually don't know, a lot of people lie on their CV. This is where you will get caught out. Okay, and if you're not confident about anything that you've written on your CV, that's not going to show you in very good light. So make sure that your CV is very honest and crisp. And the most important part in your interview is the logical approaches that you show. So remember, right at the beginning, I told you that I had answered what is correlation wrong, and still got the job. So how did that happen? You must be thinking, because all of you said that no, it's not possible to get the job after making a mistake like that. So what had happened was that I was asked the question, and I said it's a relation between two variables, and they were like, okay, bakra mil gaya, right? And so they asked me, okay, so what is the correlation between y and x squared? And then they worked me through for some 5 minutes trying to get me to the right answer, and eventually I finally like corrected myself and said that no, based on the conversation we are having, I think correlation is the linear relationship between two variables. And so as a recruiter, what does that person look at me and think? He thinks, first of all, either this guy has really bad academics, that he does not know what correlation is, or that he made an honest mistake, which is possible. But what is going to be very attractive to the recruiter will be that, okay, this guy made a mistake, and once given the pathways, he actually used his logic and found out what the correct answer is. So even though the knowledge base might not be perfect, but the logical reasoning is very important. So should I just walk through one? Okay, so suppose you are in the interview and you've been given a case study. Uh, Before that, let me just give you an anecdote, right? So I think this happened at the old World Trade Center, and the lifts were, so people started complaining that the lifts take a lot of time to go up. It's a huge building, right? And so they called in this consultancy firm to do something about it, and the solution obviously was to replace the whole lift system. But if in a 110 floor building you want to replace the whole lift system, it costs a lot of money. And that's not the first option that the building admin is looking at, right? So they did a study and they came up with a solution. And after that solution was implemented, people actually, they did a survey, and they was said that, they said, yeah, it's become faster. The lifts have become faster. But the solution was that they didn't make the lifts faster. They installed mirrors in the lift. Okay. So so what did they do was that they thought about the problem. They thought, okay, after I've gone into the lift, what are the things I'm doing? I have absolutely nothing to do till I reach like floor 85, right? What if I gave people something to do? What if that something to do was look at yourself, which is like we are all narcissistic at some level or the other. We would love to look at ourselves for 85 floors, and we'll feel like time is passing faster. So that's what they did. Now I'll give you a case study, and it's up to you. You can come up with the solution to this. And so suppose, so SBI has come up with this new app, right? SBI Buddy. So suppose we are the marketing team at SBI, and two members of our team have come up with two solutions regarding how to target this app. So SBI also, despite being the bank it doesn't have unlimited money, so it can only market it to specific groups of people, and the groups are divided by age groups here. Okay, so one of our colleagues says that we should target it at age group 18 to 30, because these are the people who are like, for whatever reason, okay. And another person comes up and says that we should target it at people in the age group of 35 to 50. Okay. Now I want you to tell me why you would side with either of them, and more importantly, why will you side with them? Yeah, so SBI Buddy is this app that SBI has come up with for easy cash transfers and stuff like that. It's similar to, say, Paytm. And so two members of our team have said that you targeted to age group 18 to 30. Another person has said age group 35 to 50. Which side would you choose? And more importantly, why will you choose that? Quickly, can we have some quick answers? What do you think? 18 to 30, why?
Because these are the people who like spend a lot, maybe because like consider myself.
Yeah.
I go out and I buy something, and I usually try to not use more amount of liquid cash. I try to be cashless. That is what I learned from economics mostly.
Okay.
So basically, I think this age group should be targeted the most because they have the tendency to spend more amount of money.
Okay. Okay. So the people who side with 18 to 30, do you agree with her? Yeah. Anybody who wants to?
There's one more answer, because 18 to 30 has app.
They are app friendly. Yeah. So that's. Okay, there's somebody who said 35 to 50 because they are the people with higher bank balance. Important point here, right? Because 18 to 30, at least 18 to 22, 23, you don't have a lot of cash. Anybody who wants to think 35 to 50 here?
Having a bigger bank balance doesn't necessarily mean that I have to use the app, right?
Because
Correct.
they are also prone to more amount of saving. That age group. If I
Yeah.
see my parents,
Age group 18 to 30 has more bank transactions with the app rather than with any other.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it could be.
If I target the 35 to 50 age group, then
Yeah.
that would incur an awareness cost. Like we have to really teach them how to, because most of them are not tech savvy.
Okay. Okay.
There is this
Okay.
recently this advertisement about to like teach somebody to be cashless, you have to like post a photo with them selfie.
Okay.
From SBI only.
Yeah.
So 18 to 30, they would generally use the app. We tell them or not tell them.
Okay.
The age group 30 to 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
So if we target on them, we'll get both of them.
Correct. So I think just in the interest of time, there's one point that I'll bring out. which would be, so you're thinking it correctly, you're thinking on the correct lines. You're thinking that okay, 18 to 30 are the people who are tech savvy, but having a lot of online transactions, so volume of transactions is higher maybe than the higher age group, despite their having a bigger bank balance as such. But you're looking at it in a very uh, specific case. Now you have to understand that SBI does not exist in isolation, right? Right. So it belongs to a broader industry, and if you want to stand out in your answer, it would be important to look at like the general equilibrium in terms of like economic speak. So SBI buddy. So if I'm a 18 to 30, if I'm a, like a 25-year-old, and I look at SBI buddy, it's just one option among multiple options that I have. Definitely a lot of the people in this age group will go forward and use SBI buddy, but they're also using Paytm, they're also using MobiQuick and like a bunch of other apps that are there. But if I look at the age group 35 to 50, so these are people who do not really use tech. We have already come to the conclusion they are not very tech savvy. uh, but if we target it to them, what does SBI have which Paytm does not have to this age group? Trust. Trust. Brand loyalty. Secure. So to a person who's not very tech savvy, like some random new company called Paytm coming up and telling them, please, send me your money over the phone, doesn't sound very trustworthy. But if they know that SBI is saying that, and SBI is something that they have got their first salary in 25 years back, and that bank is saying you use this, of course, the volume will not be great, but SBI has a better chance at focusing on that age group than say one of the other newer apps. So that's just an example. This is not a correct answer. There are no correct answers here, right? So just the point that I'm driving is that make sure you're thinking in a broader sense, in a general equilibrium, and come up with business logics and a very logical answer to whatever case study that comes up with. And that is what is going to really help you in your interview, because the tools part of data analytics is something that you will learn on the job, and it's not something that you can be completely prepared for at any point of time, because different companies use different tools for the same job depending on how large they are and what are their histories in using those are. And it's not possible to always know everything. It's good to know one or two, so that because it's not very if you've learned say SAS and you want to move to R, it's not very difficult if you understand how the logical framework of your problems are. If you can frame your business problems in your head in the form of an algorithm, it's not going to be very difficult for you to code it down in any language, as long as you spend some time and learn the language. And that's not the important part. As a recruiter for freshers, so the case will be very different for somebody with experience, obviously, because then you will be expected to be very good at SAS or R or whatever you're doing. But as a student, the thing that I'm most looking for is that you're somebody who is confident, you're somebody who has very good logical thinking and reasoning, who can be given a business problem and can come up with an innovative solution to it. And at the stage before that, the CV looks something that is appealing to me, it does not bore me, and yeah, in general, it's somebody who I think can add value to my firm. And my firm requires value in different forms. It requires that amazing coder also, it requires a very good speaker also, it requires somebody who can be a very good leader as such also. And all of these qualities, it's not likely that one person will have that. If somebody has it, great, you will like ace everything. But if you are good at one thing, you need to know yourself, and in the upcoming months before you appear for your interviews at the end, later in the year, it's important that you understand yourself, you find out that what are the key things that you are really good at, and you highlight them in your CV, you highlight them in your personal interviews. And so I think best of luck to all of you, and hope to see you, some of you, working in the analytics industry next year. You have a question?
Small
Yeah.
question is, if somebody wants to shift from one industry to the data science domain, then how should he prepare or tackle, like from manufacturing, if he wants some that I'll go to the data science, it's the fact.
So if you I know a lot of people who have moved. So I worked with some of them also who have come in from other industries. So some of them are somewhat related, as in they have come in from, say, front end finance or front end banking to analytics. So for them, the case was that they had the domain knowledge, but they did not have the knowledge of the tools. So they understood what risk management in general was, maybe more than we do, but they didn't understand the tools. They didn't know SAS or they didn't know SQL and stuff like that. And they came in and learned all that. But if you're coming from a different domain, it is important to highlight that, there. So you need to highlight the aspects of your professional development over the years, about your soft skills, your leadership positions that you have taken. So that will be common. That is not industry specific. So identify what are the things which are not industry specific, focus on those, and regarding the data, the things which are industry specific, that is like the statistical knowledge and the tools, get that basic framework, the building blocks in place, go through your courses, and be sure that you know that. So you need to portray the idea that, I'm not as good as everybody else maybe, but I come in with a lot of experience in some of the soft skill departments, and if you give me a chance on the hard skills, I will pick up very quickly. I'm a quick learner, so that's something that you can portray.
Plus aim at the company that you possess experience from. So if you're coming from a manufacturing background, you would be going for the companies who would be using analytics in manufacturing. Like there's one company, like one of our students recently got hired, where they're talking about the veneers and the plywood manufacturing. So they have to understand that they would be producing only that much that can be supplied. Demand and supply has to be matched. So again, if you can't forecast what would be the demand, how would you do the supply? So if you have a specific domain experience, a specific industry experience, you have to opt for the companies in analytics that utilizes your domain. So if you're trying to jump to banking, bad idea. So you're trying to jump to healthcare, very bad idea, right? So it has to be controlled in that manner. For freshers, it's like big C out there, whatever you want to start off your career with.
So I'll just invite Victor to talk to you a little bit about Propelled. And so, yeah, Victor, over to you.
Walid, thank you. It's a very insightful session. So Walid is going to go to the next room. I think there are a lot of people who have other queries as well. I'm sure you guys must be brimming with a lot of other queries as well. You could obviously always drop in a message, and we would collate those questions and get back to you. We can do that. Now, Walid is a Propelled mentor. I'm not sure how many of you guys here have heard about Propelled. Ishani, could we go to the next? Yes. So Propelled, we are a company whose aim, whose objective is to enable talented students to reach the highest potential that they actually should achieve. As in, sometimes what we have seen is that a lot of students, even though they're very naturally talented, sometimes do not get the opportunities that they deserve to reach to the highest their career objectives that they actually want to achieve. So this is what we do at Propelled, and we have apart from financing the students, apart from ensuring that talented students actually pursue the courses that they want to, that they can do really well in without thinking of financial constraints. What happens is, through our Propelled network, we involve the students in multiple facets, in the sense that once we get a student in Propelled, we take a bet on them, and then we ensure that these students, when they go out to face the interview, so to speak, to go out into the world, they are uplifted from a level of X to a 5X. You will be in the Propelled network. There are mentors like Walid and multiple other mentors that you get access to. So you can speak to them, you can talk about your career objectives, you can be guided by them. We do your CV building sessions. We ensure that your LinkedIn profiles are up to the best way in which you can post them. We ensure that when you post it in third-party sites like Naukri, there are particular hacks to it. How do you best utilize it? So these are just a few of the things that we do at Propelled. We basically ensure that once you decide to do a course, then after your decision is made, we want to make it very easy for you, that without thinking of any financial constraints, you do these courses, and then we will help you get wherever you want to. We will help you in every possible way. in your CV building, doing mock interviews with you, helping you with your body language. If you have any communication problem, your academic monitoring, multiple things that Propelled helps in. And a big thanks to Ivy for giving us the opportunity to bring Walid here and speak to you guys and have this time with you. And all the best for your upcoming interviews. And do keep these things in mind. Do spend a lot of time on your CVs. Spend 40-50 hours on that. I'm not exaggerating on that. Do your mock interviews. Do the mirror work where you just look at yourself. Look at even your body language and how you express yourself. So these things are important. Do not waste your question on who. Tell me about yourself. Frame a nice answer for that. Spend a day thinking about that. Do that, and all the best. Thank you.
Guys, if you guys have any questions, like a lot of people are online are posing questions after questions. I'm sure you guys also have some personal questions regarding your career, the shifts, and what will I do, which industry is best for me. Since we are short on time, if I could request you guys to leave your phone number and email address, and Polumi will tell you it's info@IvyProSchool, the email address. Drop in your question over there so that we can ask Walid personally. He will be answering those questions. All right. I'm so sorry. Too many people are asking too many questions, and Propelled and Walid, everybody wanted to give a lot of information at the same time. So we are running short of time. Okay. Yes. info@ivyproschool.com. We will probably send out an email to all of you since we have your information.
So all of you have actually registered yourself here in the apprenticeship? You haven't?
Yeah.
Everyone has written down your name, huh? You didn't do
Sign
it.
the
Please,
sheets,
share
and the guys who are online, like I have already messaged you all that if you can drop with your phone number info at Ivy Pro School. So if you would like to personally chat with any one of the mentors at Propel, then we can connect you over the phone, or if you want to talk over the email, then just drop in your questions and we'll get it answered for you guys. All right, thank you so much for the participation. Hope you enjoyed it. Yes, gained a lot of it. Few points I keep telling guys to work upon, and I was very happy that these guys spoke about the same thing. Then some of the people have shown interest as gymming and internet surfing also, hobbies. All right. So take care. Thank you so much for giving us time. Thank you, people who are online. And I think Propel team is going to plan more and more sessions like that. So keep in touch with us. Okay. Bye bye. Thank you.